Welcome to part 4 of my Darth Vader Character Analysis. If you haven't seen part 1, 2, or 3 yet, then I highly encourage you to do so. I'll throw up the title card and place a link in the description to it. In today's video, I'll continue my case for Vader as the greatest Star Wars character, looking at his role in Episode 4. So, without further ado, let's get into it. At the start of A New Hope, Vader's impact on the galaxy is clear, as we see how much has changed in the 19 years since Revenge of the Sith. As visually, the Republic's environment during the prequels was more vibrant, whereas now, during the era of the Empire, everything feels more worn down or industrialized. We also see over the 19-year period the state that Vader is in, where he was once full of conflict, he's now committed to the dark side of the Force, as he is truly seen as the machine that will terminate all life that stands in his way in order to achieve his goal, no longer concerning himself with morality, his choices. As we're caught up to speed, we see that although the rebels are able to escape with the plans, Vader ruthlessly pursues them aboard his Imperial Star Destroyer, the Devastator, and an appropriately named flagship to represent Vader, as he, like the Empire, has brought devastation to anything that goes against his mission. This is seen visually through the opening shot of the film, as the Star Destroyer pursues the Rebel blockade runner in the Tainted Four, filling up almost the entirety of the frame, emphasizing how much more powerful Vader and the Empire are in comparison to the small Rebel fleet. The Empire then boards the Tainted Four, and it's here that the audience is introduced to Darth Vader for the first time, with one of the most iconic shots in Star Wars, as no words are spoken but the mere image tells us 1,000 words. Vader approaches through the smoke to enter as he towers over not only the fallen bodies of the decimated Rebel fleet, but his own stormtroopers as well. He's a menacing figure in all black, contrasted by the all-white background of the hallway. This method of storytelling with color, and the towering over the dead bodies, is an example of the age-old idea in the film of show, don't tell, as it simply signals to the audience that he is our antagonist and the villain. Vader also being in all black highlights the idea that he, in this mythological tale, is what is referred to as the archetype of the shadow or the villain, the one who will challenge the warrior or the hero in the story, and in this case, Luke Skywalker, who conversely wears all white, as their paths and goals are diametrically opposed, their destinies are intertwined. Vader's mask also acts as a way for us to see him as less human, as the inability to see his face, and mostly his eyes, gives him a sense of stoicism that exudes a calm and menacing nature. Simply, it can be hard to empathize with him at first, because it acts as a shell or exterior that he's created for himself to keep others at bay. And as for Vader as a character, the mask illustrates the false persona that he's put on to hide his real feelings and true emotions from other people. So as the trilogy progresses, we as the audience gain more insight into Vader's true self, as the man under the mask is revealed more and more throughout each film, both literally and metaphorically. And as we're given Vader's first speaking scene, the setup and imagery pays off and lives to the expectation, as Vader, with his menacing size and stature, are put to good use, as he's seen choking a rebel soldier, lifting him off the ground with one hand with ease, truly emphasizing his devastating nature.
Where are those transmissions you intercepted? What have you done with those plans?
We intercepted no transmissions. This is a consular ship. We're on a diplomatic mission.
If this is a consular ship, where is the ambassador?
We see how intimidating he can be, a stark difference from the man that he once was, as he's a machine that's willing to eliminate any life that stands in his way. He's the type of person to handle things himself and will kill those that he interrogates if necessary, whether or not out of necessity or to send a message to both his enemies and his allies, or even just because he can.
Commander, tear this ship apart until you found those plans and bring me the passengers. I want them alive!
Vader commands the respect of not only the audience and his enemies, but his subordinates. As he gives orders, there is never any doubt that the stormtroopers will follow them, as they're just as afraid of him as anyone else, emphasizing all aspects of the Empire's methodology of ruling by fear.
Darth Vader, only you could be so bold.
The Imperial Senate will not sit still for this. When they hear you've attacked a diplomatic...
Don't act so surprised, Your Highness. Yes, you weren't on any mercy mission this time. Several transmissions were beamed to the ship by rebel spies. I want to know what happened to the plans they sent you.
Vader doesn't even entertain the lie and just cuts to the chase. As usual, he's a man of action, and once his mind is set on a mission, he will bulldoze his way to seeing it through.
I don't know what you're talking about. I'm a member of the Imperial Senate on a diplomatic mission to Alderaan.
You are part of the Rebel Alliance and a traitor. Take her away!
If he doesn't get a straight answer, he won't waste any time either, calling Leia out and sending her away, knowing that he can and will get the truth from her by other means.
Holding her is dangerous. Word of this gets out, it could generate sympathy for the rebellion in the Senate.
I have traced the rebel spies to her. Now she is my only link to finding their secret base.
Vader knows what the consequences are, but he's a man of taking risks if need be, as the reward will be well worth it.
She'll die before she'll tell you anything.
Leave that to me.
Vader always has a few tricks up his sleeve, although he underestimated how resilient his next subject would be.
Send a distress signal, and then inform the Senate that all aboard were killed.
Vader shows his intellect and cunning to complement his ruthless nature, as he understands the importance of not showing the Senate all his cards, knowing that they would simply get in his way if they knew that he was holding a prisoner.
Lord Vader, the battle station plans are not aboard this ship, and no transmissions were made. An escape pod was jettisoned during the fighting, but no life forms were aboard.
She must have hidden the plans in the escape pod. Send a detachment down to retrieve them. See to it personally, Commander. There'll be no one to stop us this time.
Vader shows his confidence in his split-second deduction, based off of the evidence given to him, never hesitating and immediately taking action to retrieve the plans he was looking for. It also shows that the people that he's working with don't share his same level of intuition, as they allowed the escape to go with no resistance, simply because there were life forms. Throughout the film, Vader appears sparingly, but when others speak of him, the legend that is Darth Vader only grows, as we see the impact that Vader had on Obi-Wan as he speaks of him fondly as Anakin, yet is mentally scarred by Vader and what he has done, showing how his actions have had a profound effect on the story and its characters, even after all these years. And it's with this growing legend of the history of Anakin and Vader that would directly mold his son's perspective of it, making him idolize Anakin and resent Vader.
I wish I'd known him.
He was the best star pilot in the galaxy, and a cunning warrior. I understand you've become quite a good pilot yourself, and he was a good friend.
Obi-Wan's memory of Anakin is not tarnished as he disassociates him from Darth Vader. We can see that he truly sees the two as two different beings. Whether he wants to admit it or not, he wants to believe that the man in the suit may still be there. Although, because Obi-Wan is a realist, his look of fondness in his once best friend fades away, as the reality sets in of what he became and his failure along with it.
Your father wanted you to have this when you were old enough, but your uncle wouldn't allow it. He feared you might follow old Obi-Wan on some damn fool idealistic crusade like your father did.
While it's not necessarily true that Anakin ever said he wanted him to have the lightsaber, the sentiment is there. And this is something that Obi-Wan truly believes that Anakin would have wanted, as it's the weapon and symbol of a Jedi. Guardian of peace and justice, a beacon of hope, as Anakin once was.
Father's lightsaber. This is the weapon of a Jedi Knight, not as clumsy or random as a blaster. An elegant weapon for a more civilized age. For over 1,000 generations, the Jedi Knights were the guardians of peace and justice in the Old Republic. Before the Dark Times. Before the Empire.
Obi-Wan, like many other elderly people, is like a window to the past. Through them, we see the world's events through their point of view, and it makes the events all the more real, not something that you can gather from a history book per se, as we see the pain in Obi-Wan of reminiscing the change between how good society once was before the era of the Empire. And Anakin's weapon reminds him of not only how society once was, but on a more personal level how his good friend in Anakin was, as Anakin was once a hero of light who filled the galaxy with hope and inspiration, whereas now, Vader is a villain of darkness, overshadowing it with fear and despair.
How did my father die?
A young Jedi named Darth Vader. who was a pupil of mine until he turned to evil, helped the Empire hunt down and destroy the Jedi Knights. He betrayed and murdered your father. Now the Jedi are all but extinct. Vader was seduced by the dark side of the Force.
What Obi-Wan is saying is true from a certain point of view, as he would one day say. A reminder that perspective is everything. He truly feels that the two are separate, as it's how he can sleep at night. Overall, this introduces the idea that the Jedi, like Anakin, are not perfect. They're people just like everyone else, with flaws, wants, and desires. This greatly juxtaposing the storybook description of being the guardians of peace and justice. Back on the Death Star, Vader's interactions with other Imperials further sets the tone of his intimidating presence. Vader walks in with Tarkin, and while he may not say much, he still holds the power, emphasized by the idea that he's the one person who stays standing in the room, looking down on the other Imperial officers. And with the Imperial Senate having been dissolved, his rank as the Emperor's Fist and number 2 in command only strengthens, only to be arguably challenged by Grand Moff Tarkin himself.
Fear will keep the local systems in line. Fear of this battle station.
And what of the rebellion? If the rebels have obtained a complete technical readout of this station, it is possible, however unlikely, that they might find a weakness and exploit it.
The plans you refer to will soon be back in our hands.
Here we see the different concerns and thought processes of Vader, Tarkin, and Taggy. Tarkin is more concerned with their progress in conquering the galaxy, as they have finally established an absolute galactic empire, failing to control the looming threat. As Leia would say,
"The more you tighten your grip, Tarkin, the more star systems will slip through your fingers."
Vader is confident, but it borders on arrogance, as he never addresses Taggy's actual concern, which is, what will they do if they find a weakness? Taggy may come across as paranoid, but he's being more thorough than every other person in the room. Vader, like everyone else on the Empire, has an issue with hubris, as they've been winning for so long that they collectively don't properly react to their first defeat in years.
Any attack made by the rebels against this station would be a useless gesture, no matter what technical data they've obtained. This station is now the ultimate power in the universe. I suggest we use it.
Don't be too proud of this technological terror you've constructed. The ability to destroy a planet is insignificant next to the power of the Force.
While they may have gotten cocky, Vader always reminds others where the true power lies. It's interesting to see that over time, and post-Mustafar, Vader becomes more in tune with the Force and respectful of it, becoming a true student of the Force, where in his younger days, he cared more about the physical, such as lightsaber combat. All the tools and technology can keep advancing, but he knows that nothing will give him the power the Force has, something he has learned directly from his masters, his training, and his failures.
Don't try to frighten us with your sorcerer's ways, Lord Vader. Your sad devotion to that ancient religion has not helped you conjure up the stolen data tapes, or given you clairvoyance enough to find the rebels' hidden fort.
I find your lack of faith disturbing.
An iconic moment as Vader shows the true nature of the Force. While others feel that the Death Star gives them power, Vader reminds everyone that power comes from within. He does so in an aggressive manner, but nevertheless gets his point across, as anyone who dares to mock his beliefs will suffer for it. He will make them a shining example of what happens when not only do you doubt his religion, but more importantly, Vader as a person, what he's capable of, truly being the epitome of rule by fear, as the representation of fear itself, having been afraid his whole life. He knows how to strike fear into the hearts of others.
Enough of this. Vader, release him.
As you wish.
This bickering is pointless.
Vader complies with Tarkin, as he's the only one that he respects enough to listen to, knowing that, like him, he's a man of obtaining results through actions. This being an example of how with Tarkin, things would never get too out of hand, as he would keep his rage in check with a simple reminder. This in comparison to Empire Strikes Back, where he has no supervision, and he unleashes his anger on anyone that stands in his way. And speaking of which, Vader would now use some of his aggressive tactics in an attempt to extract much needed intel out of the princess.
And now, Your Highness, we will discuss the location of your hidden rebel base.
Vader shows the means he will go to find answers. It may be cruel, but he's a man of finding results, and given his history, this is nothing in comparison. But given time, you will find that her resilience is unparalleled, and he must find a solution that doesn't simply involve physical pain.
Her resistance to the mind probe is considerable. It'll be some time before we can extract any information from her.
Vader has spent such a long time being the Emperor's fists that he's forgotten that there are alternative means to getting what you want through fear, as he should know better than anyone that some people don't fear death on themselves, rather on those that they hold closest to them. Tarkin reminds him of this, and it shows how the brain and brawn truly complement each other, showing how they've been able to be so dominant for so long.
Perhaps she would respond to an alternative form of persuasion.
What do you mean?
I think it is time we demonstrated the full power of this station. Set your course for Alderaan.
Tarkin is willing to use the fear he suggested earlier by killing innocents for the information Leia has. The lengths the Empire must go to break her spirit is incredible, and Leia stays strong throughout the entire process, emphasized by the fact that she has no real powers such as the Force and the small size of the rebel army she leads. And the only real hope she has is on an unassuming droid completing his mission. Hey everyone, thanks for watching. I had a ton of fun making this video, so if you enjoyed it too, then I highly suggest liking the video. And if you want to see more like it, then definitely hit subscribe. And if you want to be notified when part 5 comes out, then hit the bell for notifications. Or consider checking out my Patreon, where I'll be uploading videos there significantly sooner than on YouTube. So part 4 should be available there as I speak. And the same will apply to the next parts when they come out. And on that note, I want to give a shout out to my patrons. Your support means everything to me. Finally, let me know in the comments which Star Wars character has gone through the greatest fall from grace and why. And who knows? It might be in the next one. Until next time, I find your lack of faith disturbing.